Killing in America has shocked the world. A political assassination which has sent shivers not just in US but across the globe and sparking the free speech debate once again. Months after assassination attempts on him, Donald Trump saw one of his staunchest supporters falling prey to it. Charlie Kirk, the outspoken founder of Turning Point USA and a fierce backer of President Trump, was killed during a rally at the Utah Valley University. Wearing a white t-shirt and handing out Trump's Make America Great Again caps, Kirk was shot in the neck. The visuals of the shooting have since gone viral on social media. First up, let's show you what transpired just 30 seconds before this killing.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
But what was behind Charlie Kirk's death? Was he killed for his views on gun culture and immigration, or was it something else? Let's tell you what Charlie Kirk really stood for. These are some of the controversial positions that he's taken as far as guns are concerned. He says that some gun deaths each year are worth having gun laws which allow people to have firearms. He's also been someone who's been staunchly anti-immigration, saying America is full, put our own people first. He's also pro-tariff when it comes to India, saying India paid accounts to peddle trash on tariff. He's also gone on to be very, very pro-Israel, saying that Israel is not starving Gaza. He's been anti-abortion and pro-life. He's taken a hard line against abortion, even when asked what would happen in case a child is raped and there is a birth in that kind of scenario. He goes ahead and supports even that scenario. Now, there's a breaking news coming in at the moment. The U.S. President Donald Trump has now announced that he will be awarding Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. Big development coming there with the Presidential Medal of Freedom now that is going to be awarded to Charlie Kirk, Trump making that announcement as well. And we have some more. All right, let's listen in.
Before we begin, let me express the horror and grief so many Americans at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd. Very, very big.
Now, the FBI has released the first image of the suspect linked to the shooting of Charlie Kirk. The FBI has also offered a reward of $100,000 as a reward for this particular information as well. That's the image of the suspect that the FBI has put out. And in fact, let's get a quick update from Rishabh as well. Rishabh, this is the first image of the suspect, very significant because it's taken nearly 24 hours for the FBI to put out this information.
Well, definitely, FBI has put out the first images of the suspect that the FBI believe was behind the killing of Kirk. Remember, earlier today, Kirk was shot dead. Donald Trump has issued an executive order saying that the country will mourn his death. There's a national mourning announced. And now the first sketch has been released by Donald Trump, and it is very clear that there is a reward money on this as well. So the officials do understand the importance of this whole case, and that's the reason that we are seeing such swift movement from FBI. This is one of those rare cases where...
Sure, we'll have to leave it there for the moment. Thanks so much for joining us with that quick update. And a little while earlier, I spoke to one of the a former senior White House advisor in the State Department. And in fact, we have Matt Mowers, who gave us an insight into what really this shocking episode means for the United States, its politics there. Listen into this conversation. Joining us now for more on this is Matt Mowers. He's a former senior White House advisor, Department of State. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Matt Mowers. Let me begin by asking you, it's a very, very shocking incident that has taken place. What's going on through your mind as we speak about the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk that has sent shockwaves not just in the United States, but across the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's terribly sad. I mean, I know Charlie. I've met him over the years. We've worked alongside each other at times. It's just terribly heartbreaking. I mean, here's a young political leader, political figure, a private citizen, right? Not an elected official, not someone who's held office, but someone who's just advancing causes and ideas that he truly believed in, trying to have an open dialogue at a college campus, which should be, the place, if you think of any place where the free speech should be protected, it's certainly on a college campus where you want to have open debate and dialogue. And then to see what some individual who I'm sure, I mean, while we don't know much about who the shooter is, I'm sure, was targeting Charlie purely because they disagreed with him. It's just really terribly sad for his wife, for his two young children, who now have to grow up without a father. Charlie was someone who had a remarkable relationship with President Trump. His son, Don Jr. in particular, had been in the trenches of the political fights. And now for him to have just gone out the way he did yesterday, it's remarkably sad for not just those who knew him, not just those who agreed with him, but for all people who believe that violence has no place in our political discourse and that ultimately free speech must be protected.
Absolutely, and like you rightly said, this was not the only place or the only time that he visited a college campus. This is something that he would engage in regularly and in fact engage in discussion, engage in debate and try and put his views forth in a reasonable manner. But while he chose to exercise his free speech to that route, there were others or someone else who has chosen the gun. What are the implications of this in that sense for the politics in the United States?
Well, you would hope right now that better angels can be found, and that as Americans and certainly as citizens wherever you live can understand that we can both disagree with someone's politics and disagree with someone politically, yet still find friendship with them, camaraderie with them, and understand that ultimately we still have shared ideals and values, and whether that's love of our family, love of our nation, love of our world, love of our way of life. Those are things that need to be protected. It's certainly going to drive some heat on both sides of the political aisle right now, but hopefully political leaders can find ways to quiet those tensions down.
Right. And you've been associated with presidential campaigns in the past, but the campaign that we saw last year did see a lot of vitriolic comments coming in, particularly, of course, comments coming in against President Trump. We all know the famous quote of Biden about Trump being put in a bullseye. Now, that was last year. But what role do you think that these hateful comments could have played in the case of Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen this increase in violent rhetoric going out over the last several years in American politics, and you've seen that manifest, from 2 assassination attempts of President Trump last year to, state legislators in Minnesota, to, of course, now Charlie Kirk, to a whole host of additional acts of political violence and attempted violence. Unfortunately, yesterday's was a successful attempt, but we have seen others who have tried. It has been ongoing now, really not even just in the United States, but throughout our politics across the world. I was in the State Department in President Trump's first term, serving as senior White House advisor in 2017, 18, and 19. And, it was not uncommon to see this type of rhetoric and then sometimes that activity around in other countries. But in the United States, we prided ourselves in our democratic institutions, our belief in free speech, our belief that ultimately there was a common ability to have disagreements and discord, but in a appropriate way, and do it in the public square, in the town square, to disagree, through free speech or at the ballot box, not through violence. And in the last few years, we've now seen this manifest. And so it's going to be incumbent upon a lot of leaders, to quiet the tensions right now, to try to calm down the rhetoric and to try to bring people together.
Right. I'd like to quote to you what has been stated by the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He has said that Charlie Kirk's death is the result of the international hate campaign waged by the progressive liberal left. This is what led to the attacks on Robert Fico, on Andrej Babis, and now Charlie Kirk. We must stop the hatred. We must stop the hate-mongering left. Do you agree with what Mr. Orban says when he blames the so-called progressive liberal left?
Well, it does seem like in the last, let's call it 10 years or so, the rhetoric has emanated primarily from the left, who are now calling, whether it's President Trump or in the case of, Prime Minister Orban, where they say they don't go after them over their ideas. They don't attack these two political leaders over their policies, but they attack them personally. They say that democracy will no longer exist if they win in the democratic process. They say that they're taking actions which they equate to the atrocities of the Holocaust. This is the type of rhetoric that is undermining, civil discord here. It's fomenting political violence. And I'm not saying it's exclusively one side or the other, because it's not. But the last few years, it's certainly emanated more from the left towards conservative political leaders, particularly President Trump, and in the case of Prime Minister Orban as well, who has felt that type of anger from the left.
Is there any specific comment or insightful remark against Charlie Kirk that comes to your mind that stands out, which could have possibly led to such an incident happening? Any specific comment that you can recollect for our viewers?
Oh, specific comments may have led it. I mean, we don't know yet what truly led to this, right? As far as, what kind of a specific comment may have triggered someone off to do something as awful as try to take another person's life over political speech. You have seen, though, from particularly liberal news organizations in the United States, MSNBC first and foremost among them, who often highlighted Charlie Kirk as what they would call kind of an enemy of their ideals, of the progressive left-wing movement. And so, those types of things generally, I don't think it's one single comment that sets someone off from the type of rhetoric we're seeing. It's the culmination of nearly a decade now, the dehumanization of conservative leaders, who through the media prism, they'll always try to clip one comment that they disagree with and then try to create this outrage machine. That's the kind of thing that's actually undermining the confidence people have in the ability to have these civil types of conversations.
Right. And what do you think this does for the entire debate surrounding free speech in the United States? Because this is a very clear case of someone being murdered for their views, or at least appears to be so.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, this is going to be the fundamental discussion right now. I think the one thing that gives me a lot of confidence right now, if I have to look for a silver lining, I've had to be an optimist right now, is the fact that you even have Democratic leaders largely, I'm not saying, totally, but largely a lot of Democratic elected officials coming out and admiring the fact about what Charlie Kirk was doing. That he was out there on a college campus in open venue, encouraging people to come up and disagree with him, encouraging debate and dialogue, encouraging, strong discussions. I mean, free speech isn't always nice speech. It's not always, the ability just to be pleasant, but it's free speech. It's to challenge ideas. It's to encourage debate and dialogue. And you are seeing leaders of both sides of the aisle right now, at least at this moment, less than 24 hours after this tragedy has happened, come out and recognize the fact that that was what Charlie Kirk was trying to do, and recognizing the fact that that's something that we need to encourage as a society. We need to encourage open dialogue. And so I hope that if there is a lasting legacy of what Charlie had tried to accomplish over his way too short of life, that it is this fundamental belief in free speech and dialogue and debate, and that as Americans, and really as all of those of us who live in a democratic society, are willing to protect those rights, to encourage that discussion. And I hope maybe, just maybe, we're actually going to start talking to each other again. I think because of the media system, because of our current politics, you have a lot of people who don't want to engage with people who disagree with them. You're seeing folks who are moving to communities where everyone's going to try to, look like them, sound like them, and agree with them. That's not what makes a democratic society work. It's not going to be what ensures that we have the fundamentals necessary to can move democracy forward for another generation. And so hopefully, we all take it seriously to start talking to people we disagree with and try to change their mind. It doesn't mean you have to go in and try to agree with them. Try to, use the power of an argument to win them over. But maybe we'll all take on and start doing that a little bit more as a result of Charlie's legacy.
Right. Also, isn't it true that he is somebody who's also criticized by the far right, who have actually questioned his own, conservative credentials? And I'm asking you this at a time when it's unclear who really pulled the trigger.
I hadn't heard much of that. Look, anyone who's in public life is going to have critics on all sides of the spectrum. It's just how it happens, right? I have nowhere near the pedestal that Charlie did, or the soapbox that Charlie did. But, I'll go on television and say something, and all of a sudden you start getting threats thrown into you from all sides of the aisle. You were too pro-Trump, you weren't pro-Trump enough. It's possible these things could have happened. I hadn't heard anything specifically, though, about that. I think Charlie truly inspired a generation of young conservative leaders. He brought life to the young conservative movement. And really did it by pulling it up from the bootstraps with an organization that was nothing more but a dream about 15 or so years ago when he started Turning Point USA, and to what it's become, a must-attend event for young conservatives, but also powerful politicians, the President of the United States, cabinet members, and states and U.S. senators to come to an event to approach and to win over young voters. It's just something the conservative movement had not done, and he really revolutionized it. And so I think that's going to be his lasting legacy in so many ways.
Matt Mowers, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now.
Thank you so much.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.